All right, this is the third increment in the wind probability analysis, and this is really the ultimate whatever. And in this case, I have taken some of the other analysis that I showed you in the last video, where we put some data on wind capacity, and I talked a whole lot about standard deviation, and we derived a PPA price. We discussed the difference between fixed and variable costs. And in this case, I hopefully added, to that, I added some, I think I should have deleted the financing things there. I added some refinancing assumptions. So really, excuse me for that. Here are the financing assumptions. And I added some possible refinancing where we could refinance at different dates and different times and all of that. Now the big input that's really changed is that I have a tax rate. Okay? And this tax rate causes this circular reference. And the other thing I have changed is I have a construction period. So the construction period causes a number of circular references. And I'm on my little stupid political soapbox, whatever you want to call that. Stupid, I hate that name anyway. That's something, whatever. I am talking about the advantages of this UDF method when you have any circular references. And indeed, for handling things like refinancing, changing the DSRA account, and all sorts of kind of complicated things. Now, here's what I came across. Maybe you don't care. I came across this model that took, I can't remember how many minutes, but it was a lot of minutes. And when I wanted to, let's say we changed, what should I do? I'm just going to say we make a goal seek, and we want to get, for some idiotic reason, some of the stupid people say, I want a double-digit return, not knowing what the real implications of that are, just because it's some arbitrary thing. Now, when you press the goal seek, maybe you would be unimpressed with this, and it's taking a second to do, but it solves the goal seek, and it says we have to apply a P99 case because we have quite a bit of uncertainty or standard deviations. Calling that uncertainty is kind of an idiotic thing. I think I'm going to call that 1 year standard deviation percent. Okay, now if I would reduce this, okay, and I'm reducing that, and you can see now the equity IRR is going up. And it's not a trivial amount, because at a 1% equity IRR over a long-term project, I keep belaboring this issue a lot, is a lot of money. This time we get the DSCR. Now, if I press the goal seek again, I can derive from, again, I should be saying this is coming from this P50 case, but the debt size might be from the P99 case. So we get 42. Now let's put a much higher standard deviation, and this is why I've been moaning about even financial models. Maybe you don't want to compute all the standard deviation, but I hope you kind of know the implications of it, and maybe even make your model flexible enough to accept different standard deviations like this, and I have to wait a little bit because the and here it's a good thing. I'm going slowly here. It's okay. Now the IRR goes all the way down to 7%, so it's not a trivial issue at all. It's not a trivial issue at all. Now, you look at this price per kilowatt hour, if the consultants come up with a much higher standard deviation, which makes the P99 capacity factor very different than the P50 capacity factor, now when I press the goal seek, I'm going to get a higher price. Okay? And this is the kind of stuff that takes forever and is extremely difficult to do with a copy and paste macro. And if you would use the iteration button, it would be just absolutely impossible. And even better news is, for you, not for me, I had a very nice lady named Diana from Mexico City, and she said, my model has a circular reference. What can I do? I said, well, maybe you can just put a copy and paste macro in there. And it made my day. She said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to put a UDF thing in there. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. We'll look at a real model and do it. So if you have these problems and you want to see how it works, and I'm kind of an idiot about this, but not so much of an idiot because I'm collecting real cases, and then I'm going to make you take a course before you can really get this stuff. But if you want to get in on the beginning, that's great. Now we can do other things, like if you change the construction period, we can see how the IRR changes. In this case, the DSCR is applied. If I would let's put a 0 development fee in here, okay? And notice I'm going down by 5%. And if I put a 0 development fee in and I reduce the debt to capital ratio, okay? So far nothing's happening because it's all, but now if I put a really low one in, then the IRR is going down. And what I can do then is, to get the IRR back up, I can put a higher development fee. Now, part of the reason I'm making this video is to kind of show off this stuff with the UDF, and hopefully you'll think, I want to be one of these fancy modelers. I want to show a transparent model, not you saying, I know the one criticism, oh no, this is not transparent. Bullshit. It is too. And what happens then if I put well, we're on the P50, so this doesn't matter, but what if I put a increased, well, we're still applying the debt to capital method. So I could change the DSCR and see how that would affect my case. Now, in this case, if it's going to be set based on the P99 anyway, who cares? But if I'm going to set it based on the P50 case, okay, just a minute. I'm going to set it based on the P50 case. I have to push it down a little bit before I get it. And I'm going to, I suppose what I have to do is, let's put a whopping development fee in to get it up to the, to get our cost up. And then the IRR is going up. Oh, God, I kind of went to the extreme. If we put a really high development fee and the DSCR drives the debt, then who really cares about the development fee? It's another issue. If you put too high a development fee in and it's not even relevant to your case, you're just being an idiot because you're going to have to pay taxes on that development fee if you're honest about it. If you're not, you won't. Okay, I don't want to put a maximum debt to capital that high, and maybe I'll put 85%. So now the P99 case is applied, but if we push the standard deviation down a little bit, we're going to get this. Now, some people might be asking, I want to see this model. And I'm going to say, no, I don't want to give you this stuff, but I will. But what I'm going to do is put a password protection, because my friend Hetty says, oh, no, you better be careful. Somebody's going to steal all this. And you're smart enough to steal all this stuff. I know a lot of you are. Okay, now if I put in the P50 case, if I put an increased DSCR, well, hang on. I have this attached to the wrong DSCR. Just a slight goddamn minute. What an idiot. It was saying debt sizing was based on debt to capital. So if I put a different, let's say the bank makes me have a DSCR of 1.4 instead of 1.3, and the DSCR is applied, then my IRR is 14%. But if I can get down to 1.35 DSCR, then my IRR changes dramatically. Oh, God, I didn't realize that. And then maybe I'll, so we've addressed these kind of things. If I could put debt, if instead of having upfront equity, I put debt. Now, I know a lot of you have a equity bridge loan, but this, whether you can make your financing pro rata, maybe it's a theoretical kind of thing, but if you have a relatively long construction period, I'm looking at the equity IRR, I hope you are too, can make a big difference. Can you imagine? Can you goddamn imagine if you were going to try to do this with a copy-paste macro to screw you up, and somebody puts a big, oh no, it's an optimization macro and all that. Now, if I put a shorter debt life in, that's going to hurt us, of course. Okay, and the reason it really hurts is in this case because it affects the debt size. And if I keep on going shorter, no, if I go longer, it'll eventually, the debt to capital will kick in. And one of the issues I like to discuss is it more important to change the credit spread? Okay, and when I push up the credit spread, you can see what's going on here. Now I have a change in credit spread, and this is just the first item. Excuse me. That probably busted your eardrums. Now, the other thing I'd like to say is if you, right now it's got a P50 case, but if all our costs are fixed instead of being variable, then it switches to a P99 case. Let's just look at this. If partial were fixed and partial were variable, we get 11.3 because, let's just understand why this is so important. If all the costs are fixed, then when you compute cash flow in the P99 case, the P99 has a bigger effect. If all of them are variable, none are fixed, it goes up. Now that has implications. I'm going to do this again because I'm so happy it works. That has implications when you negotiate things like O&M contracts. You would love it if you can make them all variable. I'm not saying you can, and I hope I'm not being completely unrealistic about this, but those are the implications. Now, why don't we run the goal seek macro again? Doesn't really matter because it's close to 10% anyway. I'm just showing you. Now, if I put refinancing in here, this is a whole new business. And when I put refinancing in, what I'm going to do is right now the refinancing occurs after the project life. Do you see the project life's 36? So there's a little reset macro that just says go to all the inputs. And when you go to all the inputs, just put all the refinancing to the life plus one, and then we can change the timing of the refinancing. We don't know when it's going to occur. That means we should assume 0. Now, how about this? Let me let's assume a little worst case. Let's assume that we have something like a 17-year debt, which some people might say, "Oh, that's so good. We got a 17-year debt." I've got to put one up here, and let's run our goal seek. Okay, so we can run this. I hope. Oh no, my microphone is just saying. I hope you can see that really using this UDF, you could do none of this without the UDF. I don't know what that is, but whatever. I should know. Now, if I put, right now, we have our double-digit return. If I put, this is the most aggressive case, this is a little bit less aggressive case, let's put a less aggressive case. If I put some refinancing in with those different periods, and what it does is it shows you when the refinancing occurs, what the DSCR is, what the new interest rate is. I made some aggressive assumptions. I put no tail in the very last refinancing, and our IRR, poof, 16% from 10%. And then I put case 2, case 1, and then our refinancing jumps to 20%. This is pretty goddamn dramatic, isn't it? Now, I think I've got enough. And what I keep harping on is if you don't have refinancing in your models, you don't have a very realistic model. And if you didn't have a UDF, you could have none of this crap. And then we can reset it and go all the way back. And then you might be saying, but there are two gigantic problems. One, this whole UDF thing is a black box. Number two, I don't know how to do refinancing. Number three, it's going to be such a pain to do. I don't want to do it. No, don't blame you for that. But I'm really, really working on making it easy. These are these are our inputs and from our case, and then we have a financial model. And let me just show you this financial model. Now, this has not got any UDF things in. I mean, it's not the UDF. It's a normal kind of financial model, except it's not normal for all you people in the whole rest of the world. You don't put it in a damn one sheet for some reason. Oh, God. Why not? You can have a nice flow and see what's happening. Why wouldn't you do that? Okay. Okay, separate it out. Now, what I did here, I told you already, I put some inputs in for the refinancing, and that's where our reset buttons are and all that. And I'm just showing the structure. When you go down as normal, you'd put the operations and the revenues, expenses, and capex and get a normal kind of thing. This goal seek works. You can make a goal seek with the and the project IRR. Never, ever, ever. Sorry, God, I must be blowing your eardrums out, but do not compute the project IRR from CFADS. Come on, the taxes are all messing it up. Don't you know about the very basic number one kind of rule? You take the have no interest in the and the taxes affect no interest. You have no IDC, no fees, no pollution at all from the refinancing. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. Because if there's a P99 versus if there's a P50, if you have, and you notice that there are parallel models for the P50 and the P99, this is not easy. But if you have a different debt size that comes from P50 or P99, you're going to have to figure out which one gives you the lower amount of debt, and this amount of the fees and the IDC will have to come from the appropriate either P99 or P50. So it's a little bit complicated. And frankly, it took me a little while to do this. And frankly, I made a lot of mistakes. And I thought my mistakes were in the parallel model, but they weren't. They were in the financial model. And another reason this parallel model is such a wonderful thing is it checks your mistakes. Now I'm gonna, oh no, I've got to initialize my generic macros here. Okay, this is this new thing I input. Okay, Hetty's got some suggestions, and I have to put those in. I got to make a new version here soon. And if I put, this should say sheet tab color. This is the real big one. The rest of this is easy shit. Really, it is. The rest of it's no big deal. Let me see what happens if I switch the colors of my conditional formatting. The rest of it's easy. This one's hard. Okay, and I better put an input color. I don't want to apply an outline. This just goes into sheet number 1. Why don't I change it to a brown one? I'm not going to make it a official. This wasting of time with inputs, with coloring, and not doing the key coloring, which is showing you when something comes from a different sheet. That's the big deal. Now, okay. So what I just did is it took a second, okay? I put a little true false differently, but mainly what I did is I wanted to really, really highlight what comes from the different, what comes from these UDF models, where the circular references get applied. This would be like if you have your stupid old copy and paste macros, you would put a separate page in or something for all this. Now, after you make a sources and uses with all this IDC and everything else, then I suggest, it's not absolutely necessary really, suggest a separate sources and uses, which you really have when you do refinance. And I start with the sources here. How much money do we get when we refinance, and where do we get it from? Now, I'm going to put that in a little bit later, because you could also start with maybe, yeah, and then you should put the fees in here for the uses of funds, and I didn't bother it with it. Yeah, financing fees and cost of unwinding the swap. Those are very real. I'm not saying they're not real. Please. And then the CFADS, that has a circular reference because of the taxes. And of course, we have to go to the part of the model where I hope I did a semi-annual model for once and not was too lazy to, yeah, I did a semi-annual model on this one. And then we make our debt sizing. And we make our debt sizing from either the P50 or the P99 case. And this was the dramatic event. We can compute our NPV of debt service from this. Actually, it's using the circular reference fixed CFADS. If you're a person who's first trying to make a project finance model and you have no goddamn clue as to what I'm talking about, just shut the video off and look at a basic kind of thing. But notice that you get the same kind of debt from the parallel model. And then what you do is you also take the project cost and multiply that by the debt to capital ratio and figure out which gives you a lower number. And there's our kind of little test. Okay. And I put some mezzanine debt in here, but I didn't use it because I didn't want to go too far. And then for the refinancing, it's the same sort of business. You have to figure out the debt size from the CFADS, and this debt size depends on if you're using the P50 or P90 case. Now, I'm always using the P50 case for the refinancing and for the pricing analysis. I suppose you could use a different case, and you'd get a lot lower refinancing, and it wouldn't make as much of a difference, and maybe you wouldn't even want to do it in that case. And then we have to, as usual, always, so part of this model, part of this analysis or discussion in this video is really about structuring a model. Any model. Now, I know if your model has not the correct, well, it's whatever. There's no correct structure. A lot of this is about style, but we have to put the periodic kind of uses and sources. And then I have another purple one, and actually this should be purple or red, the color. I don't know how to do that. because it could come from either the red sheet or the purple sheet. I suppose what you could do is press Control-Alt-C, and you could just then say, I want it always green or blue if it comes from another sheet. Red or blue or green, but I'm not going to do that. Okay. And then you can put in the different factors for equity up front or not. And I've made a lot of videos about that. Okay. And then you can get all your financing. And then I put a little test. Are our total uses... Just a minute. This is from the P50 case. Is the funding needs, are those the same in each case? I'm going to stop there. Then, you know, up here, when we did our debt sizing, don't make this mistake like I do. When you do your debt sizing from sculpting, and use the formulas here, use the NPV formulas. When you do your debt sizing from sculpting, that's not the debt schedule. That's a different one. That's a whole different one. So it's kind of a pain to do a separate, I hate when people say that, to make a separate debt schedule, but I'm going to do a hamburger. My stupid sister, I'm going to do the birthday cake. What is she talking about? You know, it sounds like you're going to do somebody. Whatever. Kill somebody? Do? English is a simple language, but geez, why did I say that? Okay, let's go to the base amount of debt, and then we'll have another schedule for the refinance debt, which we put in, and we put in all of the things. So you noticed we had a section for the debt sizing, and a separate section for the amount of the debt itself. That's a little complicated. And then we go to the debt service reserve account, which could be you might have to do this even if you have a letter of credit, just to monitor how much fees you have to pay on your letter of credit. Finally, then we get to our profit and loss, and this is where we have some taxes, and we put the minimum and maximum in to get all the taxes, and we have a cash flow waterfall and a balance sheet. I didn't see that. Oh, shit. I'm going to have to fix this. Damn it. Whatever. I hope I just... Damn. Okay, you shouldn't have seen that. I'm going to cut that out of the video. Okay, and we have our graphs. Okay, now I'm going to then here's what you do. Here is the big deal. This is the big deal. You make this parallel model. You get it from a template. It's not that hard. The biggest part of this is getting a good timeline that's consistent between the construction period and the operating period, so you can kind of put everything in the same single page. There's my old single page stuff. And then you can put in your CapEx, and then your EBITDA, and then your depreciation without any interest during construction, fee amortization, or anything else, and put the tax rate. So you just got to grab that from the model. Now this time, if I press Control and the little whatever it is, and then F5, oh, the CapEx, they come from the same thing, okay? I press F5, but the EBITDA, that comes from a different place. Now, for some reason, I have this comes from the inputs. And in the inputs, whoops, does this work? No. If I put this on here, okay, I wonder if this works. Nope, shit. Okay, then I'm trying to do that little square bracket to find a shortcut key. I know you can make your add-ins, and you don't tell me about that. Whatever. And then you can find a P50 case EBITDA and a P90 case EBITDA, all right? So this one would take the P50 case EBITDA. Then we make it the same parallel model, and we just grab the P99 case EBITDA. Now, once we did that, we put some financing inputs, and the biggest one to really put here is this thing called the debt sizing option. And that debt sizing option, if it's number 4, it says, okay, we're going to take either the minimum DSCR or the debt to capital method. And you can also put a fixed amount of debt in here, but I decided not to. And then you put this is the debt to capital constraint, and here's the DSCR constraint in the P50 case, and the DSCR constraint in the P99 case. You can do all of that. Wouldn't you want to pay me a lot of money for this? Then you can put in all the mezzanine debt and finally put issue by issue. And for each issue, you can put the interest rate, the debt tenure, whether you have a cash flow sweep for this issue, and if you've got a refinancing case, you still put the interest rate in, and you can put on all the fees for each issue and put in as many different issues as you want. And finally, it has a gigantic array output. This is an array output. But what it did is it did a whole parallel model. It did the whole thing for you again. The whole stupid thing. It made the whole model. And that's what's taken, frankly, years. And I think we've got it pretty close. We've got a tiny little bit of work to do on VAT debt, but you can then go through section by section, and your boss can say, oh, I want to see the sources and uses of funds, and you can get a little summary of all the uses of funds over here, including the IDC, see when it has occurred, and then you can see if we have capitalized debt, and then you can kind of see how much debt are we borrowing and how much equity, and if we're having equity, do we have an equity bridge loan? And then you can put in all the tax parameters, including how you're going to depreciate all this IDC that comes from your model or the fee amortization. You can make adjustments for if some of the mezzanine debt or senior debt or shareholders' debt is not deductible, and then you put your net operating loss in, and finally you get from all of that your CFADS, and I should kind of push it over so you can start seeing what this all is. And then you can put in if you have some non-sculpted debt, you can put that together with a sculpted debt. You can put then you show how the senior sculpting works. In this case, it was 1.35 with our CFADS, and the other one, it would be a different number. And then you can do the same for mezzanine debt. And here's what I'm trying to emphasize. And then you can go down here and put how you actually test your DSCR. So all this has a whole bunch of tests. And if anybody says this isn't transparent, go to hell. Because all you did is it didn't take long to just throw in the CapEx, the OpEx, a few of these things in the green buttons, and then you get this whole output, and this output is independent of your model. You might say, I'm trying to take you out of a job. Don't worry, I'm not. You still should make your model. This is a parallel model. It's like a jet engine with airplane with two engines. If one of them goes out, you want to have the other one working, or maybe that's not a perfect analogy, so what? And then you can look at your cash flow waterfall, and you can even look at every single debt issue, how much was issued, and all of that. And you can compare the IRR that comes from this model with your model. That's how the whole thing kind of works. Okay, and I think this is just about enough of this business. I'm going to show you the concept with a very, very simple case. And I'm going to stop this video right now.